All right, welcome to The Explainer. This is where we take really complex stuff and make it easy to understand. Today, we're digging into a drug with a wild story. I'm talking about ivermectin. It went from being this celebrated Nobel Prize-winning wonder drug to, well, a household name for some very different reasons.
So let's just start with a number, a huge one, 250 million. That's roughly how many people get treated with ivermectin every single year. I mean, think about that. That makes it one of the most impactful medicines, period, in global public health. It's completely changed the game in the fight against some really awful parasitic diseases.
Okay, so to really get the full picture, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with its Nobel-winning discovery, then look at what it's actually used for as a global parasite fighter. We'll touch on its approved skin applications, then dive into that whole COVID-19 spotlight moment. And finally, we'll look at where it might be headed next. Believe it or not, cancer research. All right, let's jump right in at the beginning.
So, Section 1, a Nobel-winning discovery. Before all the recent noise, ivermectin's story started in a really amazing place. Not with controversy, but with one of the biggest honors you can get in science. It's a genuine discovery story that totally changed medicine.
And this timeline really lays it all out. It's a journey that took, 4 decades? It all started with a simple soil sample in 1975. Then, it first made its mark in veterinary medicine. But the big leap was in 1987 when it was approved for humans to fight river blindness. And all that work culminated in 2015 with a Nobel Prize. It literally went from the dirt to becoming a lifeline for millions of people.
And get this, ivermectin is on the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines. Now that's not just some pat on the back. It means that WHO sees it as one of the most effective, safest, and most critical medicines a health system needs. So what exactly did it do to earn that kind of reputation?
That brings us to its main job, the global parasite fighter. This is really where ivermectin became a hero in the world of medicine. We're talking about fighting these awful parasitic diseases that have been around forever and fighting them on a global scale.
So, if you look at the officially FDA-approved uses for the oral version, the tablets, it's super specific. It targets things like river blindness, which is just as awful as it sounds, a worm called strongyloidiasis or threadworm, and even common scabies. And notice the dosing. It's really precise, calculated based on a person's weight. So how does it actually work? Well, it's pretty brilliant, actually. The technical term is anhelmintic, but what that means is it goes after the nerve and muscle cells of the parasite. It basically paralyzes them from the inside out, leading to their death. And here's the crucial part. It targets channels that we humans just don't have. That's why, at the correct doses, it's so deadly for the parasite but safe for us.
Okay, but the story doesn't stop with parasites inside the body. It turns out ivermectin is also used for stuff on the outside, leading us to its approved skin applications. And this is a really key distinction to understand. It's the same active ingredient, but how you use it changes everything. When you take it as a tablet, it's systemic. It goes all through your body to fight those internal parasites. But when it's in a cream or a lotion, you put it right on the problem spot. It treats things like head lice or the inflammation from rosacea, and almost none of it gets absorbed into your system. 2 very different jobs for the same drug.
All right, now we have to talk about the last few years, because this is when ivermectin went from being a well-respected antiparasitic to being front and center in a huge global controversy. So why did it suddenly become a household name? Well, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, there was this desperate global race to find anything that could work. Scientists started looking at existing drugs to see if they could be repurposed. And ivermectin was one of them because, in a lab setting, it had shown some activity against other viruses. That little bit of data was enough to kickstart a massive wave of research and a ton of public debate.
But after all that research, the big health organizations like the NIH and the CDC landed on a conclusion. And the quote here from a CDC advisory kind of sums it up. There just wasn't enough evidence from clinical trials to recommend using it for COVID-19. A really important thing to understand here is the difference between what happens in a petri dish versus a person. Yeah, in the lab it showed some antiviral activity, but to get those same effects in the human body, you need doses way higher than what's considered safe. The big, high-quality human trials just didn't show a real benefit for treating or preventing COVID-19. But believe it or not, the story doesn't end with COVID. In fact, it might be entering its most exciting chapter yet. Scientists are now looking at it for something completely different in the world of cancer research.
And this is how that science works, step by step. First, you have the lab findings, and some of them are really intriguing. They suggest it might be able to slow down tumor growth pathways. Some studies even hint it could help make tumors more visible to our own immune system. So, the next logical step, which is happening now, is early human trials. They're testing it, often combined with other treatments, for some really tough-to-treat cancers. But we're still at the beginning. The verdict is very much out. We need a lot more data to see if it's truly safe and effective for this.
And the research doesn't even stop at cancer. There's real scientific curiosity exploring other areas. For example, could it help control malaria? The idea is that it might kill mosquitoes that bite someone who's been treated. There are even animal studies looking at its potential to protect brain cells in conditions like Alzheimer's. It's pretty clear that the journey of discovery for this drug is far, far from over.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, what a ride, right? From a wonder drug for parasites to a global controversy, and now a potential tool for cancer research. Ivermectin's story is this incredible example of how a single medicine can have such a long, complicated, and evolving life. It started as a Nobel-winning lifesaver, then became this subject of intense debate, and now it's a candidate for future therapies. The really big question is, what will the next chapter for ivermectin look like?